Welcome back to Gale Force Wins Season 2.
The Gale Force Wins podcast is proudly sponsored by Newfound Marketing, a digital marketing agency located in St. John's, Newfoundland. Visit our website at newfoundmarketing.ca to find out how we can help your business grow. Newfound Marketing, a complement to your marketing team.
All right. So, Gerry, it was absolutely fantastic to be in conversation with Honorary Captain Fred George once again at his beautiful home in Bedford Basin. Wasn't it great?
Absolutely, Allan. You know, we've had several conversations with Fred now, and we're taking it to a different place. We're not talking about Fred himself. We're talking about Fred's experience with communication, really.
100%, Gerry. And Fred is an incredibly effective communicator. And, what he shared with us was 3 really cool experiences that he had. And one, of course, being how to open a speech, how to use humor and things to open a speech, capture the audience's attention. Another was really focused on simple concepts, understandable concepts, really to make the world a better place. And then the other one was really kind of cool, was how to get a standing ovation in the first 90 seconds of your speech.
Yeah, I mean, when we sat down to talk about this series of videos, I wasn't quite sure where it was going. But I think what we've agreed on is we're going to actually release, because kudos to Fred, there are recordings of these particular speeches that he gave. Not going to be long, but what we're going to do is record them individually. And then what will follow this conversation between me and you will be that chat we had about Fred's philosophy of communication and how to simplify things.
Yeah, and what I really like about it too, Gerry, is that at the end of it, Fred gives us the gift of his time and spends a number of hours with us to explain how he does those things, his techniques to do it. And I think that is the pure gold in all of this, is that Fred is sharing his experience and his techniques to help other people do just the same.
Well, I believe I made the point in the recording, and if I didn't, I'll make it now. What wasn't lost on me, it's not just about speeches, Allan. This is about business communication. If you're going to take a business to 2.4 billion like Fred did, you've got to be very precise in your communication so that you don't waste time and everyone can be rallied around the same thing. What I like about Fred is he's extremely good at bringing everyone around a particular topic. And as you said, like simple concepts, that one in particular really grabbed me.
100%. And you know what? I mean, the major episode that will come out at the end of all this has a really cool little story right in the back end of that as it relates to raising money. So you might want to pay attention to that if you're a business person.
Yeah, so just to reiterate again, so how we're going to do this, we're going to take the individual speeches and reveal those on our YouTube channel. And then once those are posted, we're actually going to put the conversation we had in Fred's office on as an episode in and of itself.
Absolutely. I can't wait to do it.
And welcome to another edition of Gale Force Wins. Here we are in historic Bedford Basin, and I can tell you what a place we're in today. We're going to get to that in a minute. I'm Allan Dale. With me, as always, my good buddy Gerry Carew from the East End of St. John's. How are you, Gerry?
I am fantastic, frankly, because we've just spent probably half an hour with Fred talking about a bunch of things, but I'm also in historic Bedford in Fred's house once again. So, Allan, let's take it away.
Well, I can't wait to get into it, Gerry. I mean, there's one thing about what we do, and it's all about communication. It's all about how you project yourself, and that's what the podcast is about. It's about inspiration, it's about communication, and I want to tell you, the episode we're going to air here tonight is unbelievable because we're going to unpack a couple of secrets. You know, Jerry Seinfeld once famously said that most people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of dying. That means they'd rather be in the coffin than given the eulogy. Well, I can tell you right now, our next guest is no He has no fear for public speaking. Fred, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your communication skills? We're going to touch on 3 specific incidents, but tell us where you got your flair for communications.
I mean, where do you want me to start? There's so many different aspects how you give a speech. First, you must know your audience. Then, you have to tell the audience what they want to hear. And this is the only way you can deliver your message beautifully and willingly. They listen to you the whole night. And there's an art how to deliver the message. I always believe, Allan, I don't like to take script with me and read. When you read, you hypnotize people. But when you engage them, you mesmerize them.
Right.
And you want to engage your audience. You look them in the eye. You want to pause. You want to raise your voice. You got to capture them. You have to project through your audience. And that's how you deliver your message. And they will be gladly listen to you. And of course, there's an art, you probably saw some of my video, how to open the speech.
Mm-hmm. So let's just talk about a couple of things here. You say know your audience and project your voice and all that kind of stuff. But one thing we've noticed in your speeches, and our guests would have watched them before they got in. They're here now to learn how to do these things that they saw in the previous videos. Tell us, where does the passion come from, Fred? It appears to me it doesn't matter who you're talking to, you have a passion to tell the story. Where does that, it doesn't matter if they're CEOs, if they're presidents, now a king. We've seen pictures of you with a king. It doesn't matter, your passion is there for everything. Where does that come from?
See, it started all, Allan, by you keep test your limit. First, you gotta have a passion for public speaking, which is I love. Debate. I love debate people. You have to be fast and witty. So, where does this come from? I kept setting the bar higher and higher and higher and higher. And every time I was able to leap over it. So soon you build that confidence, then there's no stopping to you.
Were you like that when you were working at Sobeys at 19?
I really do believe you're born with that confidence.
Right.
Now, you can work on it and you can better it. Now, I'm not going to say I'm special than all the other people out there. Each and every one of us have something special about it. You see, I can explain it to you in a different way. It's if you know what you're good at, and that's something you gotta find. What is it you're good at? And what you have passion about, and then you try to do these things. Then you can do it very, very, very well. I remember one time giving a speech to some of my employees, and they were all asking me, like, how do you know if you like your job? About what I just said, and how if you know if you don't like that job. I said, it's very easy. I said, if you at your desk and you're working, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and let's say, 5 hours later you looked at it, and it's now at 8:15, that's not your job. That's not what you want to do.
No.
But let's say if you're working on a job, and at 5 o'clock you looked at your watch, and you thought it was only 10 o'clock. That's your job. Right. You only felt like an hour and already 5 o'clock time to go home. And you want to work more and more and more. So that's something you should pursue and you should do good at. You must love what you do. And you must find, each and every one have a genie in them. You know, the genie inside you, you have to discover it. It's like a vein of gold in the mountain.
Right.
And when you discover it, you can do magic with it. When you summon that genie, you say, wow, look what I'm capable of doing. Soon you discover that genie inside you, there'll be no stop of you.
Well, you're no stranger to finding a vein of gold in a mountain, that's for sure. Now, Fred, but one thing I did notice about all the speeches that I've watched you give, and I've watched a number of them, you have a way to capture the audience in the first 90 seconds. You've got them in the palm of your hand. Tell me about some of the best openings, and how do you deliver those?
You know, you see most speakers, they go out there and they waste time. They're trying to say, oh, my name is Fred George, I am a CEO of this company. The audience already have in front of them the guide. They already know who's the keynote speaker. Don't waste that time. You're boring the audience. Don't use in your speech. Never mind this Each time you open your mouth and the word come out, make it count. So I kept challenging myself time and time and time till the last video you witnessed today, when I got a standing ovation first 2 minutes of my speech. And this one, let me tell you how this unfold. I challenged Gerry, president of St. Mary University, Colin Dodd. I was just about to receive a PhD on Sunday, honorary PhD. And I said, I bet you I can get a standing ovation in the first 2 minutes of my speech. And my wife Nellie said in, she said, what are you doing? Why you keep putting pressure on yourself? She's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why I do that. Like, that was a stupid idea. If you're asking me now, I say I should never done that maybe. But this is what you're talking about, that passion, that genie inside you. I mean, why would I put a pressure on me? I already made it on life. I'm going to give a great speech 1 hour. It started when Stena Slovic, she was the president here of CGA, CA Canada. And she heard me speaking in one of my speeches in one of the university. And I believe with Stena was at the Halifax Club. I was a keynote speaker. And she said to me, Mr. George, I could swear, I listened to you hour and 10 minutes, and I could swear were only 10 minutes. You're an amazing speaker. We need you to be the keynote speaker at CGA Canada. I said, look, I'm not a CA, I'm not a CGA. Why would you want me? She said, every year we get people from Toronto, and they put us to sleep first 20 minutes. That's the problem. We love to have people like you. So then I said to my wife, you know what? I want to do a big surprise for CGA, CA Canada. And that's when I made that bet. That's when I made the bet. I want to get a stand-up ovation, first 2 minutes of my speech. Well, they all bet against me. So here's what I did.
I was going to ask that question.
Go ahead.
Go.
Yeah, because you say, how are you going to do it?
Preparation, Fred.
You know what? We came home, it was a Friday. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And my wife said, my God, you just made a big commitment. President of St. Mary University and everyone. It was a Minister of Finance there, I believe, Mr. Graham. This is every CA, KPMG, Deloitte & Touche, you know, Price Waterhouse. We're talking the best of the best.
Right.
And I'm trying to get a standing ovation first 2 minutes. So I kept thinking. I didn't have nothing in my mind. So I sat in my office and I said to my wife, don't let no one bother me. I need 2 hours to be alone. 2 hours to be alone. First 10 minutes, I come up with the idea. And the idea was, I said, those CGA, when they graduate, they're like a lawyer, 10, 12 of them. So I said, I got an idea. So I asked my wife, Nellie, do we have today's paper? And she said, yeah, we do. I said, would you please bring it? Because I think the name there, and I want to try to remember all these names without any note in front of me. That was the idea. Well, I remember Nellie come up, and she looked at the paper, and she was smiling. She said, I have good news and bad news. Which one do you want first? I said, give me the good news. She said, we have the name and the photo. Okay, what's the bad news? They're not 8 to 12, there's 29 of them. 29 of them. I said, oh my God. All right. I said, leave this paper with me and make sure no one bother me for the next 2 hours. Please, please, please.
You were hoping there was only 5 names, right?
I was hoping 5 to 8 to 9 to 12, you know. But you know, when it was 29, be honest with you, I said, wow, that will really get you that standing ovation if you don't miss. So, look, I remember President University Colin Dodd, he asked me, he said, Fred, no, don't go with his name. When we met him at the reception, he said, what are you doing? How you want to get a standing ovation? I said, I want to name all the students. Oh my God, don't do that. He said, the Prime Minister doesn't name his cabinet like this, off the cuff.
Right.
He may miss one here, miss one where. He said, your wife got an index card with all the names. So now she wrote all the name on an index card. Why don't you take it with you?
Yeah.
Why don't you take it with you? In case you miss one, you look. Now you see, Alan, this is a problem.
Right.
This is a major fatal problem. When you take the index card with you, your brain gonna know you have an index card.
Yeah.
And he gonna depend on it. You must let your brain know, excuse me, you out there by yourself. Now swim or drown. So your brain must know there's no second dependent on any index. Your brain must know you all alone, you must deliver.
But then you got in there, Fred, and I watched the video. Everybody has watched the video by this point.
Well, let's just say, if you haven't seen it, we're not going to put it in here. In the interest and brevity,
Yeah.
go watch that video. We'll have it up.
100%. So you get in the middle of it, you're going down the names, you're in a rhythm.
Yeah.
Your rhythm is perfect, it's perfect. Then you stop your rhythm and you ask somebody a question. Say, did I get that right?
That's a good point.
And they took you off your rhythm.
Yeah.
But then you picked it up again.
That's a good point. I'm trying to demonstrate and teach the new graduate. It's not a photographic memory. Photographic memory, when somebody remember 100 the numbers, and you can see the look in the sky, and they say, okay, 6, 9, 8, 5. They're seeing the number in front of them. That's not what I'm doing here.
No.
And that's why I'm able to pause. So when I remember a couple of the names that were Craig and Craig, and I remember I said to myself, I don't want the audience to think I'm stuttering. I said Craig, Craig. I said, I believe we have Craig M and Craig D, which is McMullen and Davison. Then I looked at him, I said, did I get it correct? And they said, yes. Now most audience said, how are you going to come back? He went off the cue.
Right.
And now he's coming back to where he stopped. Now this is what I'm here to teach the audience, to teach you guys how you can do something like this. You see, in able to remember those 29 names, you must associate it with something you know. So when you associate something with something you know, it's hard for you to forget. For example, I'll give you an example. People say, well, how do you want to do it? So I figured out, you must, just like when you take a measurement, you should take it on 2 angles. When you take a measurement from 2 angles, and that point of here, next time you want to come back to the point, if you take the 2 measurement, you cannot miss. So in this speech, I tried to do it from 2 angles. First angle, I'm in Halifax. I said, let me start from Vancouver to Toronto, to New Brunswick, to PI, to Moncton, to Halifax. So I made the routes.
Oh, okay.
And when you make a route, Jerry, then you say, okay, in Vancouver, who do I know? I took this name and I started alphabetic. So I have Anthony and Aaron. I still remember the name. Because my broker is Anthony, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Aaron,
Yeah.
my broker is Aaron, and my nephew is Anthony. So I said, okay, the boat there, I cannot miss it. And I started coming to Toronto, to Barbara, to Brenda, and then I got into the sea, and I got to Craig and to Greg, and then McMullen and Davison. So you associate every name with something you know. And when you do it this way, you can never, I can pause in any one you want and keep going.
And you did this in 2 hours?
Yeah, 2 hours. It's the system.
Right. You had a process that this was going to work.
It's the system. I looked up the country, and as you know, you can start from
Yep.
Vancouver and come all the way to Halifax, and the people I know I'm on the way. No, haven't said that. I have a couple tough names. You know,
There was a couple of tough names.
I remember French name, Louis Beaubien, and some of them, you know, a very, very tough name.
Yeah.
And those are the one, if you don't know anyone with that name, associated with something you like or something you eat. When you come to it,
Okay.
you said, yes, I'm at that spot right here. And
believe-
then you can pick it up and deliver it.
This is a great technique.
Yeah.
This is a great technique to teach people, and I think it's a wonderful tool. We've noticed in some of your other speeches too that you've got a real knack to using humor
Yes.
to engage the audience
Yes.
right away. You have the audience almost in the palm of your hand within the first 90 seconds.
100%.
Complete and finish. Tell me about that.
All complete and finished. You like that one, did you?
Did.
That was a great opening. I remember that day. My God, I mean the crowd, they were eating out of my hand. The crowd, when you start your speech, you have to capture. I mean, usually, as you know, some of the video, 1,200 people, 1,500 people. That's a lot of audience. And how do you capture them? You're gonna open with joke. Very nice, clean, clever joke. And when you have an audience like university, you start with something happened to you in university. So when they ask me that question and that speech in the university, what's the difference between complete and finish? And most people will stutter, and most people will get lost. Most people will say, whoa, that's a tricky question. That's why when I threw it back to them, say, what do you think? And they say, when you complete the test or you finish the test, it's the same. That's what I said to them. Let me tell you, after 50 years of experience in my life, what's the difference between these two?
Right.
And the audience I had, they're all middle-aged, they're all married, and they can really attach to this kind of story. I said, when you marry the right one, you are complete. And all the ladies were happy, and the audience happy. I said, but if you marry the wrong one, now you are finished. That's when the crowd started to laugh.
Yeah.
And when they thought I was done, I was just about to continue. I said, now, if the right one catch you with the wrong one, then now you are completely finished. I mean, what a way to open a speech.
Right.
You capture the audience, they know you are witty, you're smart, you're fast, you're quick, and you can project. And you have to learn how to pause between your delivery.
And you read the audience. You read that audience. You knew that
100%.
it would resonate with them.
100%.
Right. That story is not going to resonate with a bunch of high school students, right? But that audience, it did.
100%.
Right.
And most people, when they read, they're not watching the audience.
Right.
That's why sometimes the speech become boring, because they're not watching the audience. So me, when I speak, I look at the audience. So if somebody start look at their phone, somebody look at the watch, I say, maybe time for me to finish that speech.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But most of the time, I keep it short and sweet. And when I finish my speech, I leave them, they want it more. Always leave a little bit short and let them want it more from you.
Right.
And that's how everybody, when they say for a Jewish keynote speaker, we usually fill up the room. And you always have these brand new idea for them, every time.
Another good thing about a speech, Fred, is the points have to be simple to understand, simple for people to grasp. Sometimes in communication, they say they're sticky. The points are sticky. You get them really quick. We listened to one of your speeches there, and it reminded me so much of that famous speech from this Navy SEAL, the Admiral.
Yes, the Admiral.
Right? That's what it reminded me of. It
When
was
you started
exactly
by make your own bed.
Exactly, make your own bed. The speech that you gave, and you just short, snappy, to the point life lessons. Tell me about what inspired you there.
I saw this one time, be honest with you, I listen to a lot of speeches around the world, and I pick and choose. And sometimes, the way you deliver this message to everyone, it's this is the important part. So you make it your own, you know what I mean? So don't be shy. The audience should never be shy. Go on YouTube, educate themselves, see what's out there, listen to speeches. Don't try to say, oh, if I don't make it myself, that's not a good speech or bad speech. Make it your own. But you have to know how to mix and match. You gotta know when to hold them, you gotta know when to fold them.
Yeah.
And you have to know when to walk away. That's what make those speech, I mean. So you really enjoy the one with the military. That's when I have a younger crowd, and I start giving them the lesson of life, and that's what our country is based and built on.
Yeah.
Simple stuff, simple stuff.
Yeah.
Simple stuff.
It was simple, but yet it was very understandable and to the point, and it made sense. Right? One after another in a rhythm and a cadence that made you want more.
Exactly.
Every time I was waiting for another one.
Yeah.
I was waiting for another one. Where's he going now? But every single one made sense, and it wasn't out of context. And the one other thing I want to talk a little bit about, in all of your speeches, you have a way to look around the room
Yeah.
and acknowledge who's in the room.
Yeah.
And there was, and one I still remember, you acknowledged Nolly and your 4 girls, just bang, 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 in keeping with everybody else that's there. Family means a lot to you, I can tell that.
As you know, I remember the speech you're talking about. I remember seeing Mayor Savage, and I know me and Mayor Michael Savage, his worship, he's an unbelievable man, and we always enjoy good cigar together. So right away I acknowledge him in the audience, and you can tell, people know I'm not preparing for that speech. Right. I mean, a great audience, a friend and family, and I don't feel threatened by anyone. And when I go up on the stage, to me it's like my second nature, you know, just like I'm home again. And I feed on pressure. As you know, in my speech with the CA Canada, I said, for pressure, what turn rough stone into diamond. And the more pressure you put on yourself, the more you're going to shine. And the audience will notice that. I remember noticing Admiral John Newton, Base Commander Angus Topsy, recognize him, recognize our military. Then people, they knew I was in the mining business. So they keep asking why he's in the mining business. I threw the joke, I do have 4 daughters, and the father of the daughter, he's gonna do that wedding, so by the look at it, I gotta do that wedding 4 times. You remember that?
I do.
And I said they all have expensive taste like their mother, and that's why I'm digging for gold in Mexico. So the way you blend it together, it's something comes with experience.
Yeah.
You flow through like a river. When you flow like a river in your speech, if there's a rock there, you flow over it. You don't let nothing stop you. You don't hesitate. You move, you bend, and you look at the audience.
I want to jump in. We've talked a lot about speeches, but
Yeah.
you talked earlier, Fred, business communication is important as well. Talk a little bit about what it means to communicate well in business.
Well, let me tell you this. As you know, my company, Gammon Lake and Gammon Gold, we were the only company on New York Stock Exchange. Brad Lange and I, we done an unbelievable job. It's my partner's Brad, very smart man. And when we do presentation to the business world, you have to under-promise and over-deliver. That's the secret to present for the business world. Most people say, I want to do this, I want to do that, and they come short. Always under-promise, over-deliver. Having said that, I'll give you a great finish here. Having said that, successful businessmen, they don't wait for an opportunity. They create one. So here's one for you. We were given a speech at the American Stock Exchange. And over there, you have to pay like $20,000, $25,000 to be on the panel. And they will have close to 2,000 investors, which is they pay $1,000 US to come listen to the panel for CEO. Each one get to present. And I remember our share price was skyrocketing. We were at our best, and I was just about to give a presentation there. So I was the last to speak. So what happened was, the first CEO spoke for 15 minutes, and they give you light green, then yellow, then red. So when your 15-minute finish, if you don't stop, they're gonna shut the lights off.
At what point does the yellow light come on? 5 minutes
5
left?
minutes before, 3 minutes before, to let you know you just
Gotcha.
about close it.
Yeah.
So I remember so well. The 3 CEOs spoke, and we have James Dime. He was one of the best analysts in New York. He spoke before me, and he went 15 minutes, half an hour, and God bless him, he's one of the best, well-spoken, and he was telling all his investors, you remember the company I told you to buy, and they all have PowerPoint presentation, and the PowerPoint presentation, he showed them the way the spike on the share price. This will give you 30% return. Another one give you a 40% rate of return, 50% rate of return. It's unbelievable. The man is a genius. And everyone was clapping. And I'm looking at my watch. My God, my 15 minutes gone because he went over and above. But everybody know James, and nobody gonna shut the microphone off. So when we finish, the CEO came to me and said, sorry, Mr. George, you can't present today no more. Now picture, I flew from Halifax to New York with my board of directors. Brad and I were there. And Brad looked at me and said, what are you going to do? They took our presentation, they unhooked it. And we have Like, you can't present no more. I said, Brad, watch what I'm going to do. I said, watch what I'm going to do. So this is what I'm trying to tell you. Successful businessmen, they don't wait for an opportunity. They create one. Look what I did on that night. So I went to CEO, fast, quick, thinking as I'm walking. I said, Mr. CEO, please, allow me just to go out and say thank you for the people came to listen to me, and I'll step down. Oh, I said, we don't need the $25,000 back, keep it. But just allow me just go 1 minute, say thank you for all the investor came to listen to me. I mean, how bad that could be. So he looked at his friend, he said, well, I can see Mr. George, no problem, but make sure no computer, no screen. So they took my screen down, they took the computer, this way they know. And I remember the board of directors, so what are you gonna do? you have no presentation, you're gonna embarrass yourself, you're gonna stumble. I said, guys, relax. You see, what do I always say to you? When the people expect you to bring rabbit out of the hat, you better come up with an elephant.
Yeah.
So look at the elephant I pulled that night. So I went up, and that's another lesson because you asked now on business. I went up and I say, don't ever speak bad about speaker before you. That's no good. So most speakers, they get up and say, I'm doing better than him, better than this CEO. Never speak bad about your opponent. He's not your opponent, he's your colleague.
Right.
He's another CEO, he's another company. But if you know how to make them bigger, then find a way to take the rug, and then you could shine very good, but you have to do it in a clever way without hurting their feeling.
Sure.
So here how I deliver it without hurting everyone or anyone feeling. I said, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all for coming to watch me here presenting at the American Stock Exchange. But first, allow me to say thank you for James Dime. He's one of the best analysts who give you the three company, did the 30%, 40%, 60% rate of returns. Unbelievable. Please round of applause. And everybody did round of applause. Then I said, now the only thing he didn't tell you about one company, and you can hear a pin drop in the room. I said, he missed to tell you about one company called Gammon Gold. I reached in under. We won that year the best company in the world. I said, we just won this year the best company in the world. We give a rate of return 1,373%. And that's why I said they took the screen down in my presentation, because I said the spike on my screen is so high, they need to put a one like 3 floors high. Man, you should see the crowd. Mr. George, what's your symbol? What's your symbol? I said, GRS. You know, that's what we traded 2 million shares. Our share went up. Market cap went up by 100 million in one day.
Oh my God.
Just on that 5 minute.
Wow.
5-minute presentation. So you tell me about business, that's how you capture the moment. I had 1,500 or 2,000 investors, and I wasn't going to leave without delivering my message. So there's money way to skin the cat.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. Here we go. How's that for a finish?
I got to tell you, so I have to tell you, Fred, I've studied communications in school. I've studied the art of communication, and what we talked about here tonight are true lessons in communication that are unbelievable, right from experience, hard-earned experience. That's unbelievable. Gerry, your thoughts?
Well, I just want to say thank you, Fred, because not everybody is willing to come on a venue like we're doing, sharing their stories. And I understand why you're doing it, because you genuinely want people to be better at what they're doing. And for that, Fred, I thank you.
Gerry, you're more than welcome. That was a great session. Allan, I mean, I hope you guys enjoyed Nova Scotia here.
I want to say I'm speechless, but I'll say this. What another wonderful edition of Gale Force Winds right here in historic Bedford Basin in Fred George's office, where we're getting great lessons in communication. Great speeches we've posted online. You should check out each one of them. In the first 90 seconds of every single speech that you're about to watch or have watched, Fred lights up the room just like he lights up the room tonight. I'll tell you this, the world needs more Fred George. Thanks very much, Fred.
Allan, thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds. That's Gale Force Winds, WINS.com.